The Crimson Fists had held, as they always did. This was, after all, their preferred enemy, and they knew them well. The only thing they did not know were the numbers involved. Swathes of them. More than had been anticipated. The Greenskins had come out of the forests and darklands of this world, the very edges of its realms, where nobody watched, nobody catalogued. None had seen their numbers swell over the years since the last purge. They had been so quiet. But they had burst from the darkness in numbers none could predict. The Crimson Fists had set up their defences on the hive directly in the path of the war. As primitive as they were, their numbers and enthusiasm made up for any technological or skill deficit. They crashed against the walls time and again, but were always forced back. Always the disciplined volleys of the Fists found their unerring target, and reaped such a toll from the orcs that they ended each day only slightly ahead of where they had been at the onset of the day. But all those tiny gains were adding up. All of those inches became feet, became miles. The horde had smashed its way to the final walls, the inner circle, and ammunition was running low, as was morale. At the dawn of the 12th day, the defenders of the city, the Crimson Fists, found a score of blips appearing in their skies. Their Auspex word. Captain Cesare waited stoically for the identification to be revealed. His lieutenant looked up from his screen and just beamed at him. "Well, what do you see? Who are they?" The lieutenant, Lucullus, could not help but laugh as he responded. "A full score of storm ravens and other assorted transports, my lord. They wear the black and white. Our brothers have come." "Ah. And we have 2 drop pods incoming to our position, sir." The two stood and walked outside as the drop pods slammed into the main plaza, their doors bursting off. Inside were very well strapped and protected containers. As the closest marines were waved into action by Lucullus, the contents became immediately obvious. It was filled to the rafters with ammunition and heavy bolters. The other was filled with longer boxes, each containing a very much needed resource. One of the marines marched towards Captain Cesare and his flanking lieutenant, but got to arm's reach and simply thrust out a scrawled note on a picked reviewer. The contents were simple. "Prepare to sally. B.T." As the sun rose, the sounds of the orc assault picked up momentum again, the rising scream of their war cry raging at the walls and hardpoints. Yet today was different. Very. As the Greenskins rushed headlong at the breaches yet again, this time they were met with ranked fire of heavy bolters. Those firing with bolters alone were doing so with abandon, but still precision. With ammo no longer an issue, it became a field day. But the morning was to then see another change, as the dull background of the orc war cry began to be drowned on either side of the hive. The officers of the Crimson Fists looked down to either side, like the horns of a bull. They heard more and more chainswords. The Black Templars, in full array of Crusader squads, and supported by Crusader Land Raider fire, were sweeping around the sides of the hive, killing all in front of them. With a look of satisfaction, Captain Cesare massed half of his men in the plaza, then opened the doors. As the Greenskins saw that they would pour into the square, the bellow of the Crimson Fist thundered at them like a banshee's wail, and as one, the Fists all charged. Chainswords wielded by black and white-clad marines on either side, by blue-clad marines with red fists in the centre, the assault craft strafing any trying to withdraw from the trap. The orcs died in their droves. The chainsaws biting into their flesh from the merest contact, pulling themselves into the orcs, then while discharging rivers of green blood and viscera from their guards, like green handheld muck spreaders. The ground was literally drowned in the blood of the Xenos. By sunset, the deed had been done. None had been suffered to live. As the star finally dipped below the horizon, the leader of the Black Templars picked his way through mounds of dead Greenskins to find his opposite numbers. He approached Captain Cesare by the light of the moon and blurted out his best greeting. The Crimson Fists were sons of Dawn, after all, but they were far more polite. "You are Captain Cesare Borgia?" "Yes. Many thanks for the incredibly well-timed support, Brother Templar." We are pleased to shed the blood of the enemies of the Imperium alongside the Crimson Fists. But now that this fray is over, we are here to collect you. We are all to go to a serious posting. I have orders here. We are to make all haste to the Abundance System. Abundance Tertius, to be precise. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the factions, forces, and war gear of the Warhammer 40k setting. And today we have what I consider to be one of the most iconic and unique features of Warhammer 40k. It is the buzzing heart of the setting, the totem of its brutality. Of course, I speak of the Chainsword. And so, let us lean on existing wisdom to give us the very basics of this glorious weapon, this horrific icon of the battlefields of the grim darkness of the future. To quote, "The chainsword is the preferred close combat melee weapon of many of the military forces of the Imperium of Man. The chainsword is essentially a sword with powered teeth that run alongside a single-edged blade, like that of a chainsaw. Most versions of the weapon make use of monomolecular-edged or otherwise razor-sharp teeth. Chainswords are not subtle weapons, and wielding one is a statement in its own right. They are horrific tools of war, designed to bite, tear, and eviscerate, where more primitive blades merely cut and slice. The weapon makes an angry buzzing sound as the teeth spin around, intensifying into a high-pitched scream as they grind into armor. It is not unlike a modern chainsaw, but lighter and able to be wielded with one hand. It is often used in conjunction with a las pistol, for guard. A chainsword brings the weight of intimidation with its obvious effectiveness, and it promises pain before death. On worlds claimed by humanity, these blades are items of status for criminals and high-ranking gang fighters, as well as weapons of lethal and crowd-pleasing necessity for indentured gladiators. Among mankind's endless armies, the ubiquitous chainsword has found a home in the arsenal of many Imperial Guard officers and commissars, as well as serving as the weapon of choice for countless warriors amongst the Adeptus Astartes since the ancient era of the Space Marine legions in the Great Crusade. This weapon sees action in all forces that serve in boarding and assault parties, such as Marine Assault Squads, Chaos Space Marines, especially the Raptor Assault Squads, and Eldar Striking Scorpion Aspect Warriors. The chainsword has also been seen in common use amongst Imperial pirates and rogue trader captains. In alien hands, chain blades take more exotic forms despite obeying the same function. An Orc chain chopper will have none of the Eldar chain saber's bone-sung elegance and little of the reliability of a Space Marine mass-produced weapon, but it will carve flesh and shed blood with the same eagerness. Orcs often steal them for mad docs and mechs, and it has been reported that slugger boys also use them. Some Orc war bosses have been known to attach them to their hands instead of claws. Like many examples of human innovation, the chainsword's many variants seem to have their roots in the shrouded histories of the Dark Age of technology. Accordingly, it saw consistent use in the armoured fists of techno-barbarians during the Age of Strife, and amongst the Emperor's own armies during his Thunder Warriors' brutal conquest of Terra. But chainswords have been wielded by inhuman hands for eons. Several Xenos races have borne such blades into battle, even in the ages when mankind could only look up at the stars with spears in their hands. Tech Priest Foundry Masters have speculated down the centuries that it is simply a natural evolution of the sword's design, from bronze to iron, from iron to steel, from steel to chain teeth, and from chain teeth to a weapon wreathed in an energy field such as the Imperial Power Sword. But doubt remains. More than one Martian Magos has devoted their life's work to researching the primeval origins of chain weapons. Most likely the result of inspiration stolen from an alien race, in a war that may never be remembered. If this theorem ever bears fruit, it is distinctly possible that the galaxy's first wielders of chainswords were jade-clad warriors of the ancient Eldar. As befitting the galaxy's most common type of chain weapon, chain swords come in hundreds upon hundreds of styles, patterns, and local variants. Two-handed blades are often referred to as eviscerators by the Imperium, but these immense weapons come in almost as many variants as their more common counterparts. Every Space Marine chapter will forge its own blades, with subtle differences to those of its brethren, just as every Forge world produces its tried and tested signature weapons based on its preferred schematics. The most common template for any Imperial chainsword is the Mark 11 Hell's Teeth pattern, with thousands of minor variants seeing use throughout mankind's endless armies. Chapters such as the Flesh Tearers, the Marines Errant, the Minotaurs, and the Blood Eagles have made no secret of their own named pattern chain blades, usually divergent in matters of decoration and reverence. Unsurprisingly, one of the most thematic Imperial variants is also found amongst the Adeptus Astartes, the so-called Kraken Tooth Frostblade of the Space Wolves, with its chain teeth supposedly formed from the fangs of the sea monsters blighting the oceans of their homeworld of Fenris. Despite their relative ease of manufacture, few weapons require as much maintenance as the Imperial chainsword. Fortunately, the maintenance is of a mundane nature, easily performed by any ganger or warrior, rather than something like plasma technology, which inevitably requires the sacred insight of a tech priest in order to keep it functioning over time. Replacement teeth tracks are found in vast crates alongside lasgun power packs in every Imperial Guard drop zone, as well as being similarly stored aboard every Space Marine Thunderhawk gunship. The first concern is that even the most well-forged chainsword will blunt quickly against heavy armor, especially the dense ablative layers bolted onto an orcish warlord, or the tainted ceramite of a traitor marine. Chainswords lack the heavy cutting weight of chain axes, and their bulkier ilk, and are better served to cleaving through the joints of heavy suits of armor. Secondly, chainswords are thirsty weapons. Some variants are much more efficient in terms of fuel consumption, but those that aren't powered by self-sufficient energy generators drink promethium fuel no differently to countless other low-tech Imperial machines, and emit the same crude oily reek as any tank's engine. The final concern is one of skill. Chainswords can throw teeth when they're used in poorly executed parries, slapped blade to blade with other chainswords, or simply wielded with all the precision of a club. While teeth are easily replaced and repaired, it is not uncommon for battles between chainsword duelists to end with both the victor's and the loser's blades missing several teeth, especially if the fighters wore heavy armor. Orc weapons, especially those with chain teeth made from the alien ivory of an orc's own sharpened fangs, are especially vulnerable to this kind of degradation. Anyone with a modicum of experience wielding one of these weapons knows to parry with the forced flat of the blade, rather than catch a blow on the toothed moving edge. These issues of durability rarely apply to the battlefield. A hive ganger or sump-waist outlaw can own a chainsword his entire life without suffering the same degenerative annoyances as an assault marine of the Adeptus Astartes, because, like any weapon, a chainsword's use depends entirely on context. When used as intended against lightly armoured foes, a chainsword is lethality incarnate. No other blade in existence cuts flesh with the same vicious, ravening hunger as a chainsword. A fighter's strength will add to the blow's devastating effect, but where other melee weapons rely purely on strength, a chainsword makes for a perfect dueling weapon, just as effective when wielded with grace and speed over brawn. Once the teeth even graze flesh, their motorized bite hooks deeper and saws through muscle, sinew, and bone with the same surgical ease. Just as nothing cuts meat and bone like a chainsword, nothing bleeds like a chainsword wound. Enemies losing arms and legs to these weapons, a practice commonly called limbing by Imperial Guard veterans with unpleasant smiles, can look forward to one of the bloodiest battlefield deaths imaginable, as their life pours out through the uncauterized, mangled stump of flesh that remains in place of a whole limb. End quote. And there we have it. The chainsword. Bulky, heavy in many cases, and terrifying. Imagine actually just step back for a second, close your eyes, and think of being accosted by someone who has a sword which has got teeth just whirling around it, knowing full well that if they just tip you even once, you will be pulled into that chainsword and literally cut in half. The effect on morale can never be underestimated. The sheer drama of it all as well. Here, in the chainsword, we see the most horrible weapon in the entire grim darkness. For when one is struck by it, it literally pulls off flesh. The shock which is involved is catastrophic. The pain is unimaginable. So, with all of the huge monsters out there in the universe, the chainsword is the ultimate equalizer. Yes, power weapons may cut through a hive tyrant's hide like a hot knife through butter, but a chainsword makes such an astonishing mess that it cannot be underestimated. It cannot be ignored. Of all of the things in the grim darkness of the future, the bolter, which we will discuss soon, all of these weapons, it is the chainsword which truly represents its brutality. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. I hope you have enjoyed this brief introduction to the chainsword, and please know that in future we will go into the many different variants of them, because they are so much fun. But for today, let us just leave it there. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.